things I do as part of my job is work with our LLM students. It's the best part of my job. A big part of that program is a number of students that wish to become eligible to practice law in the U.S. So I have quite a few years of experience advising students on the issue, and I hope to share that information with you today. So as I mentioned, one of the reasons that many lawyers wish to earn a U.S. LLM degree is to be able to sit for a bar exam in the U.S. and become eligible to practice law. So how do you know if you are or can become eligible to practice law in the United States? And what do you need to do? So I hope to answer those questions for you today. So lawyers in the U.S. must be licensed, and each state makes its own rules. The U.S. is comprised of 50 states, so there are 50 sets of rules, though some states may have similar rules. It is important to know that there's a process of admission to an individual state's bar in order to practice. So unlike in some countries, having the U.S. law degree is typically not enough, though it depends on the state. There is usually a test that anyone seeking admission in that jurisdiction must take, and we call that a bar exam. There is a good state-by-state resource available at the link on the screen. You can look up the state you're interested in and find out what the eligibility requirements are to sit for a bar exam as a foreign law school graduate. And you will see there, it's at ncbex.org. And that's where there's a nice chart, state-by-state resource that helps you to determine what requirements are for you as a foreign lawyer. Today I will focus on New York, as it is the choice for many lawyers trained abroad. This is because of the generous rules for foreign lawyers with respect to eligibility, the fact that a great deal of business is done in New York and thus knowledge of the laws here is important, and the prestige associated with being admitted in New York, the financial capital of the world. It also happens to be where Brooklyn Law School is located. In 2016, New York began administering the Uniform Bar Exam, which just means you're tested on common law and rules that apply throughout the United States, when previously you were tested on New York state-specific laws as well. Now, the New York State law is tested via an online course and an online exam. In New York, the Court of Appeals makes the rules for who can sit for the New York State bar exam and who can be admitted to practice in the state. The New York State Board of Law Examiners ensures that those rules are carried out. So those are a couple of agencies that I'll talk about throughout this presentation today. The eligibility requirements to sit for the New York State Bar are essentially a law degree from an accredited university that is equivalent in duration and substance to one in the United States. This means it should be between 3 and 5 years in length, and in English common law, it must be a law degree, and your university must be accredited by whoever accredits law schools in your jurisdiction. Graduates of the traditional 3-year or more common law education from countries such as the UK, Ireland, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Israel are usually eligible on that legal education. You don't know for sure, though, until the New York State Board of Law Examiners makes a determination on your specific case. Even if you do not meet the eligibility requirements, New York State permits you to cure either a durational or substantive deficiency, but not both, by earning an LLM in the U.S. from an ABA-approved law school. The LLM must meet certain course requirements, which we will discuss a bit later. Most foreign lawyers are subject to the cure provision, including lawyers trained in civil law systems, students who take the British conversion course or 2-year senior status LLB, or those from India and some other common law countries. Everyone, regardless of whether you think you will be eligible based on your foreign education alone, must have their eligibility determined. And there are 3 main steps to the process. The first is you complete the online evaluation form. The second is that you will send required documentation and translations of every document not in English to the New York State Board of Law Examiners. And third, you wait for a response, which can take up to 6 months from the date the last document was received. Just because you're admitted to an LLM program or complete an LLM does not automatically mean you will be eligible to sit for the bar exam in New York. We recommend you complete this eligibility process prior to beginning an LLM program. It takes, again, 6 months to get a response from the New York State Board of Law Examiners from the time the last document was received, so you should plan accordingly. So let's take the New York State process step by step. The first step is to complete the online foreign evaluation form. You can find this evaluation at the link on the screen, www.nybarexam.org. And once you're on the bar exams webpage, there's a foreign legal education tab. And you scroll to the very bottom of that page, and there's the link to the online foreign evaluation.
Julie, can I interrupt you very quickly, because there has been questions that has been asked, based on what you were talking about. We have a question from Gautam Mishra, who has asked whether he can practice law if he's registered with the local bar council that is within a country. So in this case, he's from India, so he has asked if he can practice law in the US as someone who is registered in the Bar Council of India. I think you will be addressing that in the presentation, what exactly is the process. And second question is from Boaz Abraham. Boaz, thank you for this question. So he asked, does the documentation have to be sent directly from the university to the Bar Council? Is that what is required?
Thank you for those questions. So first, for Gautam's question, I just want to go ahead and answer that now. You must have your eligibility determined in the United States and go through an admission process in the state. Just because you are admitted to practice law in a jurisdiction in India does not automatically make you eligible to practice law in the U.S. Depending on the state, you will have to go through a process of having your eligibility determined for admission in that state. And in New York, that means you must take the bar exam in New York. So every state is a little bit different. Some have similar rules. But in New York, which I'm speaking about today, you would have to have your eligibility determined to sit for the bar. You are not eligible to practice in New York based on any admission in a foreign jurisdiction. So that's, I believe, the answer to the first question, but feel free to follow up if that didn't clarify things for you. And Boaz, your question about whether the documents have to be sent to the New York State Board of Law Examiners directly from the issuing institution, the answer to that is yes. No documents can come from you or, even a certified copy or a notarized copy. They must come from the issuing institution in a sealed envelope. So again, feel free with follow-up questions. Vishnu, interrupt me too if there are others related to that. I'm going to jump back into the presentation now. So the first step, again, is to complete that online foreign evaluation. And completing this will tell you whether your first degree in law school is on the New York State Board of Law Examiners list of accredited universities. If it is, there will be no need to provide proof of your university's accreditation. So it will tell you that information right away. When you type in your university, it will say whether or not it's already been on the accredited list for the New York State Board of Law Examiners. This process will also assign you a unique BOL, Board of Law Examiners identification number. You'll need to save this identification number because all correspondence and applications with the board must contain your BOL number. The second step will be to send in the required documentation. So before you send anything, here's a few important things to know. Keep in mind, again, that all documentation must be generated and sent by the issuing institution in a sealed envelope. So even if you have an original or a copy of the required documents, you cannot send them to the board yourself, meaning it cannot be your copy. If you have the documents in a sealed envelope from your institution, you can actually put them in the mail, but they have to be in the sealed envelope from your institution, meaning it can't be your copy. Fax copy, photocopies certified by a notary public, and or photocopies certified by anyone other than an official at the issuing institution will not be considered. If the institution does not have the required document in English or doesn't issue it in English, you need to ask the institution to issue a second copy to be used and sent by a certified translator. You should put your BOL, your Board of Law Examiner number, on every document, and be sure you allow enough time for the New York State Board of Law Examiners to receive all of your materials, review them, let you know if you need anything more, and then issue you a final determination. If you don't allow enough time for this process, you risk not receiving a determination of your eligibility in time to join an LLM program or to take the bar. So here on the screen is a list of the documents you need to send, and it's copied directly from the Board of Law Examiners website. So first you need to have your official transcripts sent. If those official transcripts don't clearly state the degree awarded and the date, then you'll also need to send a degree certificate so that it clearly shows what degree was awarded and the date. You also have to show proof that you've met the educational requirements for admission to practice law in your country. And this can be done in one of two ways. The first way is you can show, if you're admitted to practice law already, you can show proof of that. Sometimes it's a card, a license, a letter. Or the other option is if you aren't admitted yet, you just graduated, or there isn't any sort of official proof that you're admitted, then you have to show proof that you've met the educational requirements of someone to practice law in your country. So there's a couple of ways to show that. The next is accreditation of your school. So if you were not on the New York State Board of Law Examiners, if your university is not on that list of accredited universities, you'll need to show proof that your institution is accredited, and that generally comes from whatever body accredits schools in your country. So in the United States, it's the ABA that would show what schools are accredited, what law schools are accredited. And then the last document, this LLM certificate of attendance form, comes later. So that's after you've completed an LLM. If you do need an LLM, then the schools will be required to send an attendance form to show that you have completed the LLM. So at the time of having your eligibility determined, it's that first 4 documents on the screen that you're looking to send. And the last step is to wait for a response from the board. There are 3 possible responses that you can get from the board. The first is that you're eligible based on your foreign legal education alone. The second is that you're eligible if you earn an LLM pursuant to this cure provision, which is Rule 520.6 on the Court of Appeals. And the last is if you're not eligible even if you earn an LLM. So the first response is what we see when it's students who have studied English common law in, general 3 to 5 years and from countries like the UK, Australia, as we discussed previously. The second response is the most typical response, and this is a response that are from students from any other sort of common law system or from a civil law system. And then the last response happens when you are so deficient either both in substance and duration, or you have failed to do something really critical in your foreign legal education. So a couple of examples of that are if it took you too long to earn your first degree in law. So normally in New York they will say you have to earn it in 5 years or less. So if it took you 10 years because you had a leave of absence for 4 or 5 years in there, and you're from a civil law system, then your education is deficient in substance and duration, and that you would not be eligible even with the LLM. Similarly, if your education took only 1 year, your legal education, then it wouldn't be, and you're from a civil law system, then it also would be deficient in substance and duration. Another example are students from, say, Guyana, who are required to go to Trinidad to do a legal training course, and they haven't done that training course. Their education is not sufficient in substance enough that allows them to sit for the bar, even with the LLM. And the way you handle that last situation, or the way the students have, is they end up typically transferring from our LLM to our JD program and earning a JD instead, and that allows you to take the bar in any jurisdiction. So here's what a response, the most typical response from the New York State Board of Law Examiners looks like. It comes by email, and this is a response that says you must earn an LLM because you're subject to that cure provision. So it says your foreign transcripts have been approved, but your ability to sit for the bar is contingent on successfully completing an LLM degree from an ABA-approved law school. So if you're subject to the cure provision, which most students are, you must earn an LLM which meets certain course requirements. And I put there on the screen what those requirements are. So you must have the LLM degree. It must be a minimum of 24 credits in 24 months or less. The courses require classroom instruction in the U.S., so no distance learning or correspondence is permitted. The following courses are required. So you can see that it's courses are dictated by the rule. 2 credits in professional responsibility, 2 credits in legal research, 2 credits in American legal studies or the fundamentals of American law, and a minimum of 6 credits in other courses tested on the bar exam. This will comprise about half of your LLM degree, sometimes more. And there also can only be a maximum of 4 credits in the summer, and that clinic and externship credits, which are a big part of U.S. legal education, the practical experience opportunities, they do count towards the 24 credits. And the U.S. is on a credit-based system, and so that's what that 24 credits means. And every credit is about 700 minutes of in-class instruction. So once you know that you're eligible to sit for the bar, so you've gotten the response back from the New York State Board of Law Examiners, then you actually have to register to actually take the exam during a specified application period. For the February, the bar is offered twice a year in February and July, and for the February bar, you must register in November, and the July bar, April. So in addition to having your eligibility determined, then you have to actually sign up to take the exam. And you should absolutely know whether or not you're eligible prior to registering and paying the $750 application fee to take the bar. If you are in an LLM program...
If I can very quickly interrupt, there is a question from, I'm so sorry for interrupting, there is a question from Amandeep Kaur, who had asked 2 times, basically, so that's why I interrupted. She wanted to know, you were explaining about the eligibility criteria right now. So mostly the answer would be like, they would, an LLM is required from the US to write the New York bar. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So in that case, she also wanted to know: is there the English language test requirement also along with one of the eligibility criteria? This is asked by Amandeep.
No, thank you. Not for the New York State Bar eligibility determination. When you're applying to law schools, which is a completely separate process, many will have English proficiency requirements, but when you're just having your eligibility determined by the New York State Bar, there is no proof of English proficiency.
Another 2 questions are also here. Anaga has asked the question. Anaga, thank you for your question. She asked that, does the cure provisions necessarily apply to applicants from India, or are there any things which can help us circumnavigate that?
So thank you, Anaga. So the answer to that is, from my experience, our Indian students are subject to the cure provision and are required to earn an LLM. My caveat is that it is a case-by-case determination for the New York State Board of Law Examiners. So I can't give you a definitive answer on a specific situation. You must go through the eligibility process with the New York State Bar in order to know for certain your situation and what you will be subject to. But I can tell you from my experience, if you have a standard law degree, legal education background from India, you will be required to have a U.S. LLM degree, and you will be subject to that cure provision.
There is also one more question from one of the attendees, Annie Arya. Annie, thank you so much for the question. So her question is the validity of the email with the cure provision, meaning if we apply to the New York BOLE before we start the LLM, then we are eligible to practice for more than 1 year later on. Is that possible? Like, am I being clear? Is that clear? If not, I can just copy her question and I can just paste it to you. If not,
let me see if I understand it. If you, I think the question is, if you earn an LLM, so you haven't gotten a determination from the New York State Board of Law Examiners yet, but you go ahead and earn an LLM, will you be eligible to sit for the exam based on that LLM? Is that the question?
Is that the question, Annie? Is that did she get it right? No, that's not the question. So can you please word it a little bit more clearly so that she'll be able to answer it? So yeah, I mean, when she writes the question, then I'll ask that to you, because the validity of email by the authorities, that's what she's asking.
I mean, if the answer is like, can I depend on or rely on the email from the New York State Board of Law Examiners?
Is there a limitation period for that email? Like, you know, the eligibility criteria, is there a limitation period? Because I think I mean, I'm making a presumption over here because, you know, in UK there is called a certificate of eligibility, which is given to a Indian lawyer. And that certificate of eligibility has a limitation period of 1 year. So once you get that certificate of eligibility, you will have to write and clear your solicitor's exam within 1 year. So is there any limitation to the email that we receive?
I got it, Annie. Okay, that's a terrific question. And the answer is no. Once you get that response from the New York State Board of Law Examiners, it's good for, you know, into the however long into the future until they change the rules, essentially. So no, there's no period of time that you must then sit for the bar. In fact, I have students that have gotten the determination 5-10 years ago, and it's still good.
Yes, that is exactly what she wanted to know. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to jump back in. So to register to take the bar, it's $750, and my advice is that you have a determination of whether you're eligible before paying that fee because it's non-refundable. And once you sign up to take the bar, you know, you pay the fee at that time, and you don't want to pay that fee if you aren't sure whether or not you'll be eligible. If you're in an LLM program in the United States, there will be communication to the student body, a lot of it regarding bar exams from the registrar's office about these deadlines. It's also worth noting that the exam alone in New York, which is the biggest hurdle for foreign lawyers, is not the only requirement for admission to practice law in the state. You must also meet these other requirements there on the screen, which are 50 hours of qualifying pro bono work, a passable score on the multi-state professional responsibility exam, so that's a professional responsibility exam, and in New York the passing score is 85. You have to go through a character and fitness interview, and you'll have to complete the New York Law course and New York Law exam, which are online, and an online portion as well. And then coming in 2018, there will also be a skills competency requirement for all lawyers admitted to the bar in New York. And then just a bit about Brooklyn Law School. At Brooklyn Law School, most of our LLMs sit for the bar. So to help them succeed, we have a bar prep course as part of our curriculum, which you receive credit for, and which counts as part of the credits required under that Rule 520.6 cure provision. We introduce the numerous private bar preparation companies to our students early in their LLM program to help explain what they are, what they can do for you. And we have programming where alums come in and share tips on how to pass the exam the first time. We actually just had that panel last week. We're currently accepting applications for our LLM program, and we will be through June. You can apply online at LSAC, the Law School Admissions Council, which is just an agency that facilitates application to law schools in the U.S. But I'd like to leave you today with a video that I hope gets you thinking more seriously about continuing your legal education, and more specifically about Brooklyn Law School.
What distinguishes our program is our focus on the needs of the students as individuals. The Fundamentals of American Law course is designed to give the LLM students enough background in American law, but the course both starts and ends before the regular course starts, so that when they take upper-level courses, they're able to integrate themselves into the intellectual culture very, very quickly.
Brooklyn Law School's LLM students are an incredibly special part of our community. We have a relatively small LLM program, which allows the students to have a lot of individualized attention. Our LLM students are eligible to participate in pretty much all of the opportunities that are afforded to our JD students here.
There's a lot of different pro bono opportunities. There's a bunch of clinics that everyone can participate in. There's a wide range of subjects that you can study.
I decided to earn an LLM degree to explore international immigration law. I have completed my bachelor degree and I have studied all the civil law subjects in my bachelor degree. And now I'm exploring the immigration law with deeper knowledge, and that's why I've decided to earn LLM.
It's advanced degree only we translate into the more competitive and the promising the opportunities in the future. I wanted to give myself the best chance to succeed, and I think that BLS gives you this opportunity.
I chose Brooklyn Law School for my LLM degree because number one, it was cost effective compared to the other schools in the city. And number two, it has a great reputation. I applied to Brooklyn Law School and I got a really wonderful welcoming from the BLS community and felt that this is the place for me. It's very friendly to immigrants and very culture friendly as well.
Brooklyn Law School is like one family. All the staffs are very friendly.
The LLM classmates are wonderful. I'm good friends with a lot of them today. We have a big mixture of people that are a little older and people that are a little younger and just straight out of their law schools and their countries where they come from. All of the professors and the support staff, everyone is really willing to help you and everyone really wants you to succeed.
All the tutors are open to feedback, and all the faculty members are ready to answer the questions.
Brooklyn Law School has I believe, tremendously trained faculty members and also the administrative staff. They're people-oriented, they're students-oriented.
What impressed me is probably the rate of people who succeed after they finish Brooklyn Law School.
The LLM program really prepares you well for the bar exam.
The city for the bar examination will prepare you for the job in the future.
By the time you take the bar exam, you're very well prepared in what is going to be expected of you.
I chose Brooklyn Law School because of its location.
Brooklyn Law School is in Brooklyn Heights, which is a great neighborhood. Brooklyn Law School's location is wonderful. Just look at this amazing view that you can just walk down, grab lunch, and just sit here and you can study. There's the promenade, which is really beautiful, lovely to walk along. There's great cafes and restaurants, and it has just a really lovely vibe.
When you look back in the future, you will find it's a very beautiful and the most beautiful experience you've had in your life.
Finally, today I'm here and I'm pursuing my dream of studying abroad in the New York City.
I think New York City is very, very magical.
Brooklyn Law School has definitely changed my life.
And with that, thank you for joining me today, and I'd be happy to take any additional questions if there are any.
Thank you, Julie. There are quite a few questions. In fact, Anika has asked a question like does the law school help us in preparing for the New York bar exam? Is that something that the law school helps the attendees with?
Yes, so we have a bar prep course as part of our curriculum. So meaning the students take that course, they receive credit for it. Those credits count towards the 24 you need to under the CURE provision. And it's in the fall and the spring, and it's kind of like part one, part two. So you can take both parts. It covers different material. And there's a midterm and a final that actually simulate the bar. So you'll do the multiple choice questions, the essays, the MPTs, all the parts of the bar. And there's students who take that course. Our data shows the LLMs that take that course and perform well pass the bar. There's this very strong correlation between that course and passing the bar. We also do extra programming outside of the classroom about preparing for the bar. We assist you with the process of, with deadlines and applying and what you need to do. And then we also just introduce you to private bar prep companies. So most students, in addition to what they do here at the law school, will also take a intensively taught private bar preparation course in the summer, right before they take the July bar. So most students will take the July bar. So you finish school in May, and then the end of May through the end of July, you're taking this, intensively taught course. So we help provide the information on those. It's up to you whether or not you do that, but we strongly recommend it in addition to what we do here at the school. And you're also permitted to take any of our classes here. So you can take any course that's covered on the bar, including all of what are traditionally first-year courses, so meaning the courses that our JD, first-year JD law students take, which are the basics, torts, criminal law, civil procedure. Our LLMs are eligible to take all of those classes as well.
There's also a couple of more questions. In fact, during one of our earlier presentations, I think one of our earlier webinars, we were told about the OPT, which is the optional practical training. So like, what is the view that the government takes if someone is just finished their LLM and they are preparing for the New York bar exam? So the OPTs for a period of 1 year. So will that be extended for a little bit more in case if they are preparing for the bar exam? That's something that it's a question that Annie had asked. So
Annie, the program, the LLM programs typically end sometime in May. The bar exam is at the end of July. Our graduation happens anytime between the end of May and June. So actually the program end date for our program is the middle of June. You have a 60-day grace period after your program is over before your OPT needs to start. Or before you leave the country, and the bar exam actually falls into that grace period. So you don't even need OPT at all in order to stay and sit for the bar. If you choose to use your OPT and you choose the latest possible start date, that's typically around the middle of August. So you're already done with the July bar by then. If you decide to take the February bar, then you just have your OPT begin in August. It's 12 months long, so it's from August to the next August. You have to be employed, so you can only be unemployed for a maximum of 90 days. So that's why we recommend you take the bar in July, because otherwise if you put it off to February, you're going to have to be working at the same time as preparing for the bar. But taking the bar is absolutely no problem with respect in New York, with respect to your OPT. And almost all of our students use their OPT and sit for the bar.
There is a question that has been asked by Boaz Abraham. Boaz has asked, like, as a foreign educated lawyer, can one seek employment as a paralegal or legal assistant or legal researcher? I am presuming, Boaz, if you mean like while you are doing your LLM, or is it after the LLM? So I'm not too sure, but this is the question. As a foreign educated lawyer, can one seek employment as a paralegal, legal assistant, or legal researcher, but without admission to the New York Bar Council? That's what he just clarified, without the admission to the Bar Council.
So Boaz, I'll answer both questions that Vishnu just raised. When you're on an F1 visa, you are not permitted to work off campus except in very limited circumstances, which wouldn't apply here. You can work on campus but not off. So during your actual LLM study, that for, the 10 months, that first year that you're here, you would not be permitted to work as a paralegal or a legal assistant. After you graduate, even without the New York bar, you can still seek out jobs under your OPT as a paralegal or legal assistant. They only have to be related to law. So you can work in any capacity under OPT related to law, as long as it's related to law. So legal assistant, paralegal, law clerk, researcher, any of those are fine. And as soon as your graduation is over, assuming you've applied for work authorization by OPT, you can work for pay in any of those capacities. Once you take the bar and pass, it's likely that then you'll want to seek actual work as a lawyer versus a paralegal or a legal researcher.
Julie, we have a question from Llm Tripathi, who just asked, like, I think he joined the presentation a little bit late because the question has already been addressed by you, but if at all you can very briefly mention the steps to apply for an LLM to Brooklyn Law School. So say, for example, like, Divyam, are you in the final year, or are you actually a practicing lawyer? If you can just type that out. But nevertheless, what is the steps to apply for an LLM in Brooklyn Law School? So what are the documents that are required, and how do we go about it?
No, I actually didn't cover that. The application to law school in Brooklyn Law School is separate, completely separate from the eligibility process to the New York State Board of Law Examiners. It's worth, emphasizing that. I actually just got a call from a prospect yesterday with confusion about that process. He thought because he'd applied for eligibility to the New York Bar that somehow the bar and the schools are communicating and sharing documents, and we're not. So the process to apply to Brooklyn Law School actually is completely electronic and goes through the Law School Admissions Council. So that's, you register at www.lsac, lawschooladmissionscouncil.org, and they facilitate applications to the law school in the U.S. You create an account there. It's free to do so. And once you do, you're able to access any law school's LLM application. So you would find Brooklyn Law School and you click on it. There's an online application form that you complete. You upload your personal statement and a resume or a CV. Your personal statement is just a brief, I would say, one-page, single-space typed statement of interest about why, what makes you different, special, why an LLM, more about your goals, tell an interesting story. The important thing with your personal statement is what can we learn about you from it that we wouldn't otherwise know in your application material. So it's not a recitation of your resume, it's something different, something interesting. And you can be creative with that. I think it's actually one of the most important documents in the entire application file. So at that time, you'll upload your personal statement, your resume. Then you must send 2 letters of recommendation. They can go directly to LSAC, or they can come to Brooklyn Law School. Either way, they can be completed online or mailed in hard copy, and you can find directions for how to complete them online at LSAC's website. You'll have to have your transcript sent from your first degree in law school, very similar to the New York State bar eligibility process. They'll need to be sent to LSAC, and they must come from the issuing institution. They'll have to be evaluated by LSAC, so LSAC will evaluate them there. They have a service that you pay for. It's $185 for them to do that, and then they provide the schools with reports on that. And then English proficiency. You'll need to prove that you're proficient in English. I know some Indian students in particular will, have studied in English and spoken English a lot of their lives, and so will seek a waiver to that English proficiency score. Brooklyn Law School will consider waivers, and we do that. We have other ways to measure English proficiency, but if you can and are able to take the TOEFL or the IELTS exam, those are other ways that you can also show your English proficiency. And those are the required documents.
Thank you very much. And so I'm told that Vivian is an associate at a law firm, so he's a qualified lawyer. He's qualified to practice law in India, so he just mentioned that. And we also got another question I actually took the liberty to answer it because I think I kind of knew the answer, so I kind of took the liberty to answer it via private chat. So basically, it was asked that since there is no LSAT requirement for an LLM, whether a GRE is required, and I said there is no requirement for a GRE for an LLM to apply to any law school in the US, as I understand correctly. So,
that's right. That's correct. No GRE.
So yeah, and we also got a question from Dipesh Kumar, who is a practicing lawyer. He would like to know about international taxation and how to apply for it. Is there anything on international taxation that is that as a specialization?
So we have our LLM is a general LLM. So when your degree will say Master of Laws, it's not a Master of Laws in international taxation. It's a general Master of Laws. You may specialize in any area of the curriculum that we can support, meaning you have to take 15 credits in that area. We certainly have plenty of tax courses, including an international tax course, but I would say to specialize in international tax, you're going to have to take a lot of specialty courses, which Brooklyn Law School wouldn't necessarily be able to offer you. And I don't know off the top of my head any school that does have kind of a strength in that area. So you'd have to do a bit of research to find out where that is. If you are interested in sitting, so other thing to consider is if you are interested in sitting for the bar, about half to maybe over half of your credits are predetermined by the New York State Board of Law, New York Court of Appeals requirements under the CURE provision. So it can be very difficult to both, specialize in an area and also prepare for the bar. So at some point you may have to consider, prioritizing what is more important to you. And so at Brooklyn Law School, because most of our students are preparing for the bar, what we recommend is just a balance of both. I mean, the specialization is really hard. So unless you're absolutely committed to an area and we can support that specialization, you usually have to earn more than the 24 credits, especially in an area like tax, which is not covered on the bar. So there will be no bar courses related to that. is that, and we really encourage you to kind of choose your area of focus. And if you're here and you want to prepare for the bar, then you'll take the courses you need to do that, and then take the remainder of your courses in the area of interest to you. So that would be tax. So those are a couple of things for you to think about with respect to that.
So again, we have a couple of questions. Actually, it's a couple of questions are there, but the questions are kind of similar. So the thing is, like, Annie asked, like, whether Brooklyn Law School provides for a culmination of a choice of subjects. That means, like, can the course be tailor-made by a learner to a particular extent? Say, for example, and that too across separate courses. So basically, if I understand the question correctly, is it like, can they choose whatever they want to study?
Okay, so we have 2 required LLM courses, Legal Research and Writing and Fundamentals of American Law. And those courses are not only required under Rule 520.6 for the bar, they're also required to graduate from Brooklyn Law School. And you take those courses with just your LLM classmates. Other than those 2 required courses, you choose the remainder of your courses and credits. And you'll take the rest of your courses alongside our JD students as well. So other than the 2 required courses, which is 5 total credits, the remainder of your courses and selections will not only be with JD classmates, but they'll be up to you. They'll be your choices.
We have a question from Sudeshna. Sudeshna has asked that she's a practicing lawyer in Calcutta High Court, and she has been certified by the Bar Council of India. Like, she's eligible to practice as a lawyer in India. And does she need to send that certificate along with the other documents to apply? But I presume I'm not sure if she's asking whether she needs to send that certificate for an LLM at Brooklyn Law School or for the New York bar exam. But she said she's asking whether she needs that certificate to be given while applying.
Thanks, Vishnu, for making that.
Yeah, for both.
That distinction. Yeah, I mean, that there is a distinction there. So for applying to law schools, or for an LLM program at Brooklyn Law School, we do not need to see that certificate. But when you're having your eligibility determined for the bar, they will be seeking proof that you're admitted to practice law in your jurisdiction. And if that is the way that you show that, then they will need a copy of that. So a little bit different. When you're applying to law school, at least at Brooklyn Law School, we don't require that you're admitted to practice law or that you have already been practicing law. We just require that you have a first degree in law. So that's a little bit different than what the New York State Board of Law Examiners is looking for in their eligibility. They're looking for proof that you're admitted to practice law or that you've met the educational requirements. So that certificate would be something that you would want to send to the New York State Board of Law Examiners, but not something that you need to send to Brooklyn Law School when you apply to the LLM program.
Thank you very much, Julie. That's been extremely informative. So if there are any further questions, then please you can raise your hands and you can just type it over here. Julie, one of the questions that has been asked multiple times is that what are these scholarship options that is usually available to someone who would be applying? So is there any specific scholarship available at Brooklyn Law School? And secondly, what would be the total cost of doing an LLM, including the tuition and living expenses at Brooklyn Law School?
Yeah, so first, with respect to the scholarship question, Brooklyn Law School considers all applicants to our LLM program for scholarship. They are merit-based, so they're based on the strength of your application as submitted. There's no separate application. There's no request to consider you. We consider everyone, and again, based on merit. So how strong your application is compared to the other applicants. The scholarship awards range between 10 and 30% of the total tuition, and our tuition, just tuition, so not living expenses first, for next year, 2017, I guess this year, August, is $40,248 US. So that's for the 24 credits. You pay by the credit, and it's $16.77 a credit. So that total tuition is $40,248, which is notably one of the least expensive tuitions for an LLM program in the New York area. Then there are also living expenses, and we guarantee housing for our LLM students in our high-rise apartment building, which is about 3 blocks from the law school in the beautiful New Brooklyn Heights. And or you can choose to find your own housing if you can find something, or you have other friends or family that live here that you have another place you'd like to live. But our estimated total cost for the entire LLM program, housing, transportation, tuition, all other living expenses, is about $69,000, and that can all be found on our website as well. So that's sort of our estimated cost of living. Yours may differ a little bit based on your, what you spend in discretionary spending, but that's kind of the estimate that you'll be required to show if you need a visa. We're going to require that you show $69,620, which covers kind of everything, and that's before any scholarship that would be awarded.
Julie, there is Divyam who has asked another question, and Divyam, if you have any. I think I can tell this over here. I hope it's okay with you, Julie, that if any of the attendees have any further question, that they can reach out to you directly at the email that you have given over here. But he has just asked a question which might be useful for other people as well, that if he wants to apply directly to Brooklyn Law School and send his admissions and supporting documents directly to you, is there a requirement to attach the high school degree as well? That is like someone like what he has got during his school time, not the undergraduate or the law school, but something, so the mark list he's got from the school.
We don't require any sort of high school transcript or proof of graduation. Our application is only available at lsac.org. So we don't even have a copy of our application to send to applicants. It's not on our website. We require, at least for the application part, you must apply through LSAC, just the application form. If you want to have your letters of recommendation sent directly to us, that's fine. If you want to send us your resume, personal statement, that's fine. Your transcripts can also be sent to us, but they have to be evaluated. And so you'll have to find an independent organization like Globe or West to do that. So I don't actually recommend going that route. LSAC just makes everything a lot more streamlined, and then because we require you at least complete the application form there, it just ends up seeming to be an easier way for students to use LSAC in general. So that's kind of about the application process, but as far as your high school, we don't require any proof with respect to high school, only your first degree in law.
So there is another question that is with relation to is there any RA or GA, which I presume means the research assistant or the graduate assistantships available while they are doing an LLM? Is that what is the realistic chance of a person being able to do that?
Yeah, so as an F1 student, if you're here on an F1 visa, you do have the opportunity or option to work on campus part-time during the school year. And part of those opportunities are research assistant, teaching assistant, or working for an administrative office at the school. So I have an LLM student worker right now. I have one every year. Our faculty director of the program always has an LLM research assistant. Our vice dean actually has an LLM research assistant right now too. We always use an LLM for research assistant for one of our professors during an intensively taught winter course. So yes, there are opportunities to do that. They're not guaranteed before you come. We kind of work it out with you once you get here. They're usually either by invitation, so the professor will reach out to you directly, or there'll be postings around the law school or on our portal, our internal site, where it says looking for a student worker or looking for a research assistant, and then you apply. But I know I usually personally invite the students to be my student workers, and the faculty do the same. So it's kind of worked out like that. No guarantee. You can also work in the library. I mean, there are other offices around the school that you can work, but there can be no guarantee, but it's something that you should definitely let me know about when you come, and then we can start looking for those opportunities together.
There is also one more question which Anaga has asked. She has asked, like, if we apply through the LSAC, do we need a WES evaluation?
No, LSAC has its own evaluation service, and ACRO is the name of the organization that does it for LSAC. So when you apply through LSAC, you just check that you're, purchasing the evaluation service. It's $185 for them to do it, and they just do it. If you've already had your transcripts evaluated by WES or Globe, and you'd rather use those evaluations, we allow that. We permit that. You can just have that information sent directly to Brooklyn Law School. But if you haven't already done it, I definitely recommend just using LSAC service. It just seems to make everything much simpler and less of a headache for you.
Is that clear? All right, thank you. So thanks a lot, Julie. It's been like extremely informative and an interactive webinar. And I presume that anyone who has any doubt can approach you directly. And we will take one last question, and this is by Riyanka, who has asked, when should we start preparing for New York and California bar? And also, how should an Indian student do this? As in, like, at what point of time should they start preparing for it? Is it when they as soon as they start the LLM, or is there an answer for that? I mean, like, is there a recommended time period?
I think that's a good question. I mean, I would say that first you have the eligibility process done. I mean, I say in an ideal world, when students really before they're even applying to LLM programs, but certainly before they start, they've already had their eligibility determined by whatever bar they're seeking to take. So if it's California, New York, whoever it is, you've gone through that eligibility process and you know what you need if it's an LLM. Then once you start the LLM, I would say that's when you start really thinking seriously about the bar. I'm not sure it makes a whole lot of sense to do much preparation prior to starting the LLM. Like I said, in our program, you're going to be taking a bar prep course, hopefully, your first semester. And when I say hopefully, I mean I hope you choose to do it if you're intending to sit for the bar. So your bar preparation will start in August, when you start taking that course, and will continue on into the spring. Depending on what sort of private bar prep company you choose, a lot of them have an early start. So they'll actually start their intensive bar prep course in January or February. They do weekend meetings. And then they also allow you access to all of the lectures and things before. But I would say none of that is actually really necessary. Doing a 2-month intensive bar prep course after having taken our course as part of our curriculum should be enough. It is enough. I mean, plenty of our students, find that is adequate preparation. So I would say when you start your LLM program at the earliest, but assuming that they have a bar prep course as part of their curriculum like we do, then there isn't necessarily a whole lot you need to do before that. And as Vishnu said, I'm absolutely happy to take any kind of questions by email. We can set up a time to talk via the internet. So totally at your disposal. Please use me as a resource. I had so much fun today. These were great questions, super engaged audience. So it was really my pleasure to be here. Vishnu, thanks for your moderating. And I hope to hear from a lot of the attendees soon.
I'm really sorry. There was a slight internet connection issue. I hope everyone is audible. So there has been like one question. While can you hear me, Julie?
Yes.
Am I audible? All
Yes.
right. I'm so sorry. There was a slight internet connection problem issue that happened. There is one question. I think it is by it's by Sudeshna, who has asked about the English proficiency test. So she has been educated in a convent. A convent is a place where mostly it is like a highly, there is a high level of English education that takes place. So she's been had done all her schooling in English and her degree in English, and all her life she has been using English language. So she do not need to take the TOEFL, right? As in that's not a requirement. You addressed that earlier that you can ask for an exemption. Is that right?
Yep, you can ask for a waiver. There's actually a question on our application that says, are you seeking a waiver? And so you would just indicate there, yes, it asks for an explanation why, and then the admissions committee will consider those waivers. Often we'll do an interview, or we have our own legal English proficiency exam that we administer online. So there are other ways that we can measure English proficiency if we have any questions about proficiency after the waiver request.
And just Julie, we are about to stop right now, but the questions are not stopping, unfortunately. But I hope I mean we can email you, and also like one last question. Probably it might be relevant because people might be a little bit confused about that. So before taking the New York Bar exam, does one have to study LLM at the New York State, or can they study in any state and then apply for the New York Bar exam?
Any state.
All right. Thank you so much. And to all the attendees, if you can please email us your feedback about the webinar and what can be done to improve the webinar, and if at all you're happy with it, like how happy you are with it, then it would be really great. And if you do have any further questions, then you can approach Julie directly. Her email address is given at the screen, as you can see here, and that's julie.sculli, S-C-U-L-L-I @brooklaw.edu. Thank you very much, Julie. It's been very engaging and very informative, and this recording will be available as well. And it will be, if you're okay with it, we can also send it to the attendees as well. Thank you so much for joining in today.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thanks.